Hello and welcome to this week's Stick It to the Man video. Really kind of a fun week. It was a crazy busy week for the whole team last week. We were buried in quotes and requests, and it was really cool. It was all hands on deck. We all came together. I think I worked on more quotes last week than I have in a long time, which is, it's saying something because I do quite a bit of quotes still. In my role when I'm managing operations, I'm still handing some of our national accounts, some of the local accounts to me. So it was a busy week. It was a good week, but that really capped it off was we got news on like late Saturday night, Sunday night that we won a bid, and it was great news because we had worked so freaking hard for this bid. I'm not going to mention the specific one. As you guys know in these videos, I don't like to call names, things like that. I just want to share the good news and share stories and principles so that we can discuss them. And in this case, it's very typical bid, it's a government bid for us. We're up against what I would call the man, right? Where there's a pretty hard spec. The specs are pretty difficult to break. Alternates are accepted, but you have to get in early enough to get a pre-approval. You have to send in all the docs. In some cases, you have to send actual physical samples. They make it really hard to get alternate approved. In this one, whoever helped them write the spec went as far as to detail the exact dimensions of each light fixture, which for one of the light fixtures made sense because it was piped end to end. And so in those cases, I completely get it. On the other ones, they were high bays, they were chain hung. It's just light change dimensions would not even matter, which did come into play. So we bid on it. We won the first bid by a landslide. I mean, we won by like 20 grand over the next bidder. And, we had a decent margin on it. It's not like we were going super skinny, but we were factory direct. And so it's not uncommon for us to win by 30-40%. Anyhow, the agency that released it, they were ecstatic, they were happy, we did all the stuff, they were ready to go, ready to award us the bid, and of course somebody complained. Whoever that bid was written for got pissed off that somehow we snuck in and stole it from them, and they complained and ended up getting the bid thrown out to a rebid based on the dimensions of a linear high bay and a slight correction in a part number. And it was one of those dumb things. It's a learning experience for us, but it's like, man, come on. They already proved the alternate just because they didn't write in the 1 inch difference in dimensions, my word, So anyhow, it goes to rebid, and all our pricing had been exposed. And that's a bad situation for anyone who writes bids. Line item pricing down to the nub had been exposed for everybody who bid. So like, my gosh, this is not good. And on one product on that bid, we did not have the option to do an alternate spec. We were having to go source that through our distribution partners, which we don't have to do often, but sometimes we have to fill something out. And that was tough because we had seen on that line item we were getting killed. And so we did a lot of work on it, burned the midnight oil. We found some ways back in. Long story short, we were able to bid it again, and we won again. Not by as large a margin, but we still won by, I think, at least 20 points. They were ecstatic. We got the order. My bidding team and Grace and her team were absolutely over the moon because they worked so hard on a lot of these bids. And we run into this all the time. And the reason I bring it up is we are constantly bidding against the man. We're constantly in bidding scenarios where something has been written for somebody specifically. And in some cases, I think that person deserves the job. So it's probably surprising for some of you to hear that. In some cases, I think somebody's gone in and they've done a lot of work to help specify something and to go and do audits and go and do prep work and all these things. And then something unfortunately has to go out to bid. And in those cases, in my opinion, that person in many ways does deserve to win that job, as long as they're fair with pricing. If they're trying to gouge just because they were the first guy in there, no, they don't deserve to win it. But if they're going to be fair and they're going to take care of the customer and it's not ridiculous, then yeah, they did the work. They probably do deserve to win. Doesn't always mean they will win, but I've been in that scenario ourselves. We've had universities, we've had government agencies where we've gone in, we've done a ton of audit work, we've done all this prep work, we've given them all this information for free, and then it goes out to bid and we don't even get an opportunity, or we lose the bid, or whatever happens. And that's kind of a crappy scenario. So in this case, it didn't feel that way to me. It was one of those ones where it was doubtful anyone had even had to go on site. It was one of those where they knew what they wanted. They just came, they gave the spec, and whatever agency was in there just wrote in, here's the lines. And they, of course, put in lines that were going to be expensive and or hard to get. so that they can lock it up. And that's what they do. They lock it up, and then it's always obvious when somebody's been in and helped write a spec on a bid, because it's always written like down to the nub, like the tiniest, most intricate details. I'm like, oh my gosh, like no government agency writes that in unless somebody told them to write that in. So it was a big win for us. I love in those situations, I really feel like we get to stick it to the man. When we come in and we're able to look at that, we get an alternate spec approved. To me, it is a third party that is completely agreeing that our alternate specs are better or equal, and we're throwing out this junk that's 3-4 times the price, and we're getting them a fair price for the same thing. We're filling their need, we're giving them all the value they needed, and they're paying significantly less money. We're sticking it to the man, fighting for the little guys. So we loved it. It's a big celebration for our team, and kind of a fun win this week. I would love to hear your opinions on the bid game and in general, on how the bid game is played. How does that need to change in our industry? Right now, obviously, that game is a whole mess. I know a lot of guys that do it, a lot of guys that do it very successfully, but it is a mess, and it's a whole can of worms when you get into it. What are your opinions on how bidding needs to change? Anyhow, I would love to hear from you in the comments. That's this week's video, and I hope you have a great week.